case I don't finish, you'll finish yours.
Poppin' tabs. Welcome to the Unorthodox Film Podcast.
Hello, everybody. Welcome back. Last week, we, Joseph and I, first off, I guess, introduce ourselves. I'm Bradford, the host here at Unorthodox Film Podcast. With my co-host here, I'm joined by Joseph Quick.
Joseph Sheldon Quick. Joe Quick to
Joe
my friends.
Magic.
How you doing? Joe Magic to the ones who know about the magic.
About the magic. I definitely want to bring him up.
Yeah, we got to get Kamal on here. I'm excited to be working with him coming up this weekend.
This weekend?
Yeah.
He's on Renika's thing?
He's AD.
Oh, that's super exciting. I'm glad to hear that. I'm super excited to hear that. I don't know what the name of the project is called. I got to contact Renika about confirming, but I'm excited to be a part of it.
I know. I read the script, but no spoilers here.
Yeah, no. That's not what we're here about. What are we here about?
Well, we're here to talk about, last week we said Little Monsters won the 10
Little
toss.
Monsters. So last week we talked about films the five films that we'd recommend that were inspirational to us growing up. The five films that accentuate what became our love of cinema. And as we spoke, a lot of it geared us towards working in film industry.
Yeah, ultimately, yeah. And this week we're doing 5 films that revolve around academia that we think are
representative
to be seen.
Yeah, 100%.
Because I think we both come at our list differently, which is what's fun about it. But yeah, so we're gonna talk about our 5 films for academia.
So these are films that
they're not favorite
films where the plot or main character is focused around a university or a school of some sort, whether it follows the main character or whether the plot itself generally takes place in a school. Are the approaches that I took in my search.
Yeah, my search was just as long as the school was affiliated and more than just like a passerby kind of said, it had to be like a character in the movie or a plot device, like, or more than 50% of it filmed at the school.
Okay.
Kind of thing.
Okay. Yeah. But before we get into that, the film that got randomly selected last week was Little Monsters. So we did sit down and take a rewatch at that. Now, I think it was
classic.
A much more of a fresh look for me than it was for you, correct?
Yeah, I own it on Blu-ray. I've loved that movie since I was 10 years old. I actually was younger than 10 when I saw it. It came out when I was 7. So, I'm not sure I saw it in theaters or anything. But
so this wasn't...
I remember it before I was 10. I know that I've watched it throughout my life just because I enjoy that. Just one of the lines in it just thrills me. And it's complete, unadulterated anarchy.
And you said that as clearly as the actor did the first time. When I heard that line, I was like, what? And I was like, then I thought about it. I was like, no, that's a tongue twister. So it was definitely not it was a fresh watch for me. It wasn't something I was super familiar with. So it was very refreshing for me to go back.
My 5-year-old daughter has seen it, loves it. So we watched it like 2 or 3 weeks ago.
You couldn't have walked away thinking any differently about it than if you've only watched it a few weeks ago. So I'm sure you weren't moved in a way that changed you.
Nothing changed my mind about the movie, but when we watched it, I did watch it in a different way, like a slightly different mindset. I wasn't watching it from a nostalgia standpoint or sharing it with my child from a parent standpoint. I was really looking at it as like a filmmaker and like trying to find things that maybe I overlooked because of nostalgia and things like that.
So for those who haven't seen it, Little Monsters revolves around a family who has just moved into a new home. mother and father are not on best of terms. The new move puts dad 2 hours from work, so he's got to go drive there and back. So there's stress in the household, and amongst that, there's a monster under the bed, and as monsters do, he does some fuckery and gets the children in trouble, and that kind of sets off the initial conflict of the film. The lead, Brian, played by Fred Savage, is then befriended by Maurice, played by Howie Mandel.
Yes.
And Maurice sucks him down into the under the bed land, which, as Joe described last week, is incredibly fabulous. It was very enjoyable on this last watch to really take in the
parallel universe right underneath, and and you watch the movie as they describe it. Like, yeah, the set deck's amazing, but when you're like watching the movie, learning the rules about this, like they're under, and you like jog and go from New York to, to Chicago, and
the world was all connected underneath by me.
Yeah,
He said,
time's
Maurice says
relative
many
and-
times, it's magic, it's magic. So if you ever had any question about anything, you just have to remember, oh, it's magic.
Yeah, but it's just interesting the way they do it, because it's still relatable. It's not a stretch of your imagination, even though you're thinking it's magic.
I noticed that a lot of the monsters, so there were definitely a lot of extras, background, dressed as monsters, and 95% of them were children.
Yeah, and like any kid that was in that movie at one point was dressed as a monster. Not one of the like main monsters that had lines or anything, but even Ben Savage, you see him in the break ball game, or monster ball that they call it, where they're basically playing baseball.
Monster ball.
Yeah. They're playing baseball, but you hit it into
Just to
fragile
destroy
things.
shit.
Yeah, breaking glass
It's
and vases. And
2 minutes of
But you
glass
see
shattering.
Ben Savage
I
dressed
missed
up
it.
as a monster like 3 times, because really they just filmed all these kids playing baseball, and whoever got the best hits made the movie. And this little 5-year-old was crushing.
I wish I would have known which one that was. So he was one of the highlighted ones.
That's something I've picked up throughout
No
my years
kidding.
of watching. I was like,
Yeah, because I was going to say they could definitely recycle a lot of the actors, because while I'm sure the makeup and costuming on them were 100%, because of the fact that monsters live in a lightless world, everything was under shadow. So the amazing there was a lot of amazing detail that I'm sure the art department put in that didn't really get seen.
Yeah, this is what I'm saying. Like, even as an adult, it took me really studying. Like, I'm sure I realized it before today, but today when I watched it with you, I was like, "That's fucking Ben Savage. Like, that's the little kid
Oh, so
playing
it's really
baseball."
just connecting with you.
Yeah, like, because I was seriously watching in a different way. Like, I was like, "Oh, these are." Like,
You saw the jokes, you saw the
and I knew the
gags.
kids had. I'd even read an article or something about it, or just something about it online. Probably not an article. I don't know.
Well, it just makes sense
That
with
the
that
kids-
level
yeah,
of
the crossover
disguise
of-
to
yeah.
just recycle people that are there.
But the lead kid, the little,
I wouldn't call him the lead kid.
yeah, Fred Savage is the lead one, but the secondary main character,
Sure.
aside from Maurice, is his little brother. Very recognizable. But you almost can't tell the way they shoot it.
I didn't. I mean, now I'd be looking for it, so I'd probably see
Right.
it. So with me coming in with pretty much fresh eyes, I imagine the last time I watched it, I think about it was with you, but it was probably 8 or 9 years ago. So it's still been a long while. I enjoyed it. It's something that I don't think I could recommend to adults heavily, but that wasn't the intent for it. But I could recommend it, like if you could watch it with a younger sibling, or your own child, or if you can watch it with someone in that 8 to 11 area, I think you could then put yourself in that mind and forgive some of the things that were less forgiving for me.
Right.
Being nitpicky. I think one of the things that I think is super charming about it, but probably hurts it as far as introducing it to a younger generation from today, is how dated it is in, because it was in the 80s. So it's like the technology was different. The toys were different.
1989. Yeah.
Designs are different. So, it is definitely a movie of its era. But something that you pointed out in watching this, there was something else represented from that era that was really charming to me, and that was all the little gadgets
It's
and
my
crap.
favorite thing about 80s childhood movies is that they're always building these gadgets and contraptions that are like in the way of the home or household being properly functional, and nobody ever addresses it. It's like just like in the Goonies where the whole front yard, like the gate doesn't work properly unless you make a chicken lay an egg. Like
Right.
the parents are just okay with this. Like,
And they don't really, like, you see Fred Savage's character do that, but you don't really know the character enough to understand it. I think
well, they do brush on like he's very science minded, and he was doing good in school, but the whole family picked up and moved, and then his parents are going through a separation,
Right.
and he knows that means divorce because he's seen it happen to his friends, and he's acting out, and his grades are slipping, right? And
But the way that they featured it, introducing his room, they had close-ups directly on these weird gadgetry.
the first
gears
shot
and
of his room, yeah, like his
So you
alarm
knew
clock
that it would
is
come
like
into play.
fixed to the wall, so that like when it goes off, the blinds come up or something crazy.
I honestly was surprised how early that came up, because it was only a few scenes after the introduction of there being a monster under the bed that all of a sudden now he's crafting. A lot of times that's like tail end of the second act or beginning of the third
Right.
act, where it's like
It just escalated,
you know,
each
and like
time.
here's the climax.
He's
where
automatically cutting the legs off the bed in his brother's room and
scattering Doritos
out of his broken bike
all
that
over the
Dad
place.
ran over.
Obvious product placement from the 80s. The
Yeah.
presence of
Classic
Doritos and the
Doritos
way
bag,
that Daniel Stern was holding the Lay's bag when he was eating out of it. It was torn open specifically so you could still read
was
the
so
label.
good. Yeah.
We all know that you reach your hand in one of those bags and they just slice down the middle for some reason, just open. But nope, his was clearly a Lay's bag held up against his chest directly to the camera. You could see it.
Yep. Perfect.
But they needed that budget because the sets were so elaborate. Now, another thing I was looking for, and you may or may not have noticed it this time, but I don't believe there were as many sets as you might think there are. There was definitely that one main alleyway that was used with the...
Yeah, and they were moving pieces around to make it look different, and then
there were small
the
little
background was
corners
all matte.
that they would do like
There
specific shots on.
Any grand wide shot of the parallel dimension, the fantasy world, if you will, under the bed, that was all matte paintings, right?
Yeah, oh yeah, 100%.
And then like you'd see the kids on the stairs, but that's just like it's just blue screen, like they do.
Well,
green screen now,
the stairs definitely looked pretty real to me.
The stairs
but
were real.
The
The kids were
structure
real.
didn't look strong enough. So I was like, there has to be something underneath that to support the way, and to hide that they had to put a mat in front of that to give it the depth of
Precisely.
eternity.
Yeah.
What are your thoughts on its longevity? Is this something that you think would be appealing to?
I mean, I think as you pointed out, it's not as appealing to the younger generation because there's no like gadgetry or anything like that. Like there's no video games and stuff. But I don't know. Like I know that like for family relatability as a parent, like I love it for different reasons now because the story going on with the parents, they're super funny. They're super real life about it. Like, but it's also very casual and like not even like a third plot. It's just there because that's what life is. It's just there. It's well done.
So one of the elements that I think will hold up its longevity is I thought the performances were pretty
The performance is really?
Yeah, I think like Maurice, I think is great for the younger kids, but I think there's an age that it's going to
Mendo's a little over the top.
His delivery sometimes is a bit, but he's still one of the more enjoyable characters. Him and Fred Savage. I think Fred Savage did an impressive job. I thought the mother was pretty wooden. I thought Daniel Stern was surprisingly unenergetic. I think that just wasn't the role for him.
He was playing the tired dad.
Yeah, I don't know. It didn't land for me. And I think it was probably poor direction. I don't think it has anything to do with the cast.
Yeah.
I think they probably rushed through everything there at that house in fewer days so that they could spend more of the production schedule.
It was directed by Richard Allen Greenberg.
I'm not familiar with what else he's done. What else has he done there?
I'm not sure.
I don't think this was done from a director's standpoint with much passion. I thought the editing was pretty neat. There was one sequence, I think it was our first visit into the underworld.
Well, the editing was glorious. The practical
And
effects with the
yeah,
mad effects.
there was
and-
a sequence where Maurice's character, he was doing the tour, right? And they were moving around some places. I think it was, I know it was when he took him on the job with him.
You're gonna love it down here, bud.
When he took him on the job with them, we kind of moved through time. So the camera, how we would move past the camera, left or right, and the framing and the editing made it look like he was spiraling through the screen, but it was so seamless that I took notice of that. That was actually really, really cool.
They did some really cool stuff with that, yeah. And there was really an interesting marriage because it's all practical effects for the most part.
Yes,
but there
I
is
noticed
that
that.
slight marriage of like the little sparkly fairy wispies of light coming through. That's obviously computers, right? That didn't, but it's on the mat. It's on the part. You know what I mean? So it's something that like nowadays we would take for granted, but back then was revolutionary.
Yeah.
Like,
Oh, I definitely think that it represents a high effort in children's movies. You know, I don't think it was a miss at all. I think if I recall, the IMDb rating on it was like 6.6 or 5.6 or something like that. I think it is better than that from a child's perspective. I just don't know whether or not the interest of the modern
I mean, if you look at
youth.
the interest of my youth, that was the point I was backing up. But I still think like as a parent with children, like you watch it, it's going to have that lasting family power. You know what I mean? It's also going to have that relatability of the universal feeling that kids have when they go through those kinds of emotions and those friendships. Because like if a kid's going through something where their whole life is upended, like this Brian
Right.
kid, Fred Savage's character was,
The movie
he
does
had
have a
no
dark
friends.
undertone.
It does, and it gets real dark towards the end. Like toys start attacking, and watch for yourself. Let's not judge.
The combat sequence was phenomenally fun.
That's no
I
spoilers.
think what it
but-
does have going for it, one of the things that's a strength for it, talking about the content that children see today, is so heavily derived from computer generation that the way that it goes about it with no computers is impressive.
It's so impressive.
And if
dude.
it's like I
that's
think
another
about
thing.
when
Just
someone
as an
tried to show
adult,
me
even
a black
if
and
you're not a
white.
kid, how could you not be impressed with the puppetry there? When the monster sinks through the floor and then the clothes become an extension of
The
him, and
monster
the
visual
puppetry
gags
of
were
the
amazing.
empty clothes. You
Oh,
know,
yeah.
especially
yeah.
when they did like a whole room of them, and like they're running through the underground,
shrieking.
just
Yep.
hitting them with spotlights, and they're just boom, 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 and they're all moving and squiggling and screaming and smoking. Like that's pyrotechnics, puppets, robots,
doors.
all that stuff working together in unison. That's beautiful. That's like, as filmmakers, that's what we strive to be part of. I don't care what department you're in. You want to work with other departments more closely. You want to get
Yeah.
into those crossover moments.
I definitely imagine that a film like that had a lot of cohesion between departments.
It had to. It wasn't the era where a lot of things weren't actually going to theater and were going straight to like
Was that a
home
theatrical?
video. It did have a theatrical release, but you know the budget was, it says here like 4.5 million, but in theaters it says box office just under 800K.
Oh, okay.
So definitely box office flop, but I think it was more marketed for home video.
right, that would
Because
definitely have.
I don't see the VHS sales here, but
Yeah, and plus rentals. I'm
rentals.
sure it definitely made it back with that and HBO and you know
all that
cable
because I know I
services.
had that on VHS and I love that movie. I wore it out. It got bought for me several times, and I bought it for myself as an adult.
Yeah, I'm really surprised that I didn't know about that movie until adulthood. Like, it wasn't one that I knew about and just didn't get a chance to see. I legitimately didn't know about it until the first time it was shown to me, and I'm fairly 100% certain that you were the one who showed it to me. So it means I've seen it only in the last 15 years.
Yeah, I believe when I finally found it on Blu-ray, I was like, "Brad, you got to see this."
Were there any other topics that you wanted to go over with Little Monster?
Well, when we were watching the credits, as we do, we noticed, and you pointed out, how small the G&E crew, because
The Genie crew really only had like 7 people.
It was a massive crew, but most of it was puppets.
Construction. The construction list was pretty
huge.
long.
So
The editing team was large.
I think the reason the G&E crew was so small is because the project was so large. The time it took, the G&E crew didn't need to be large. They had to wait for construction to be done. They could move in, because like when I did the Dr. Nandy show,
right.
there was
pre-set up.
3 lighting guys for that whole thing, but there's 100 lights up, but they did it in 2 weeks.
And the style of
And then
shooting
it's
wasn't
all
so
DMX.
dynamic.
It's all from a board next to the director.
Right. The style of shooting wasn't so dynamic that even adjustments for camera movements weren't going to be super complicated.
No, that
You had-
it was
most
all
of it
planned
was set,
out.
yeah.
They knew where the camera was going to be. They
Most
built
of the time,
set
scenes were built
to-
on simple,
to match
like there was
those
the
compositions.
beautiful wide shots when they had the whole set there, and then when they were doing just smaller set pieces, then it was just medium wides, and most of the dialogue was just done with lockdown, medium to medium close-ups, and the fun camera work was in the antics, the montages, the battle sequences.
Oh yeah, the '80s montage. They did. There must have been 5 in that movie. I didn't count, but it was a lot.
They stacked them.
They stacked them.
One of the last things I'd like to say about it was how incredibly charming the score was. I really did enjoy it. It was very 80s family movie. Like many of the movies growing up that I had seen had that similar style to it. It was what I call like a hand-holding score. The music told you what you were supposed to
Yeah, even
expect.
they did
When they were
bring
playing
in pop
Monster
music,
Ball and
yeah.
the ball got away, the music immediately changed. So even though
You
it
knew
was,
the game was over.
and
you knew something.
You saw the framing was an ultra wide of overhead of him chasing it under the stairs and looking for it, but the music immediately went doom and gloom. And
this is when they first introduced
Introduced
Boy,
Boy and
the
Snick.
bad guy. Yeah, the
Yep.
villain. Now Snick, you had seen before, but now
Yes.
you know whose henchman he is. And
Right.
He becomes more present after that, not just this looming threat that is maybe there or not.
Right.
You know? He was just like a wandering bully. Now you see he's a henchman.
It wasn't super dynamic of a score. It's not something that I think would be album worthy, but it did give me that, for me, a nostalgia, because like I said, I related it to the style, but it's the light strings, violins, and not orchestral, just probably 4-piece all together, because you hear some chimes and
Yeah.
a little bit of
Well, I mean,
keys, and everything was more
It takes me back to the credits, watching like the people doing Foley and ADR and the after sound crew and the composers that were involved. Yeah, it was a big undertaking. You know what I mean? Like these people knew what they were doing. They came in with a plan, and you can't have those grand sets and these grand things. And not have them connected with the sounds that inspire those emotions.
So one thing I kept thinking about while watching, and it's a bit tangential, but I know that Howie Mandel is really weird about being touched,
Germaphobe and
yeah.
stuff. Yeah, I don't know if he was like that back then. I know
Okay.
he always had it slightly, but I think
'Cause that's a
it got worse
commitment.
as time goes on, and
He was full on covered in makeup.
I've always wondered that myself. But yeah, I mean, it was 1989. You know what I mean? He was
Hardly
nobody.
recognizable.
Yeah,
If I wasn't told that was Howie Mandel, I would not. Even all the way through watching, yes, there were some line deliveries I could hear his tone and voice, but because
this
of
is
the
pre
youth,
Bobby's World.
yeah,
you know
because
what I
of
mean?
his youth, his voice wasn't recognizable, and his face certainly wasn't.
I don't know. I think he did always have some sort of predisposition to that. I don't know. Personally,
Well, if he
I'm
did, if
not
he
one
had
to
any of
study
it,
people
then
like
you
that.
just have to think about
I think
the
it got
kudos that
worse
he
as
gets
things went on.
for
Yeah.
being able to tolerate that in the costume.
Like
and
all
such.
that makeup, yeah. And the one time, like when his character grows horns, they had the bladders
That
on his
effect
head.
was
and
so cool.
His acting, the way he did,
Well, it wasn't.
they
it was,
had to rehearse
because it was
that.
practical. Yeah, I was gonna say the timing that he had with the grip team doing that was phenomenal, because
Or the effects team, whomever
was, yeah,
it was so well done. All of it, like when he sunk through the floor, the melting into clothes, and just
his engagement in the character was phenomenal. His delivery was, for me, a little bit over the top. But at the same time, this is why I say it's better.
Was it over the top, or was everyone else too flat for you? You got to make.
Well, everyone else was too flat.
He was supposed to be over the top. He was a punk rock monster. This is what I'm saying.
I think that's like, if he had delivered it differently, it might have changed the parameter of the audience that they would be for. Like, I just think his decisions made in acting leaves it to where after a certain age, his character will no longer appeal to people.
Anybody who knows me and hasn't seen this movie, watches this movie, they're gonna go, okay, yeah, we understand why Joe likes this. This monster has a mohawk.
A little over the top sometimes. Yeah, I thought about that.
Like, there's so much in common, and I was huge into science when I was a younger man. You know what I mean? Like, I just related to that movie in so many ways because the main.
Did you ever saw the legs off your parents' bed?
No, but I did weird shit. Was like I was always building something strange. Nothing to these fantastical, but where'd I get the ideas? You know.
But it's crazy that the mother's like, "Oh yeah, no, he's for some reason upstairs sawing the legs off our beds."
You can call my dad right now, and if he were up, because he's old, he's probably up. But anyway, if you called him right now, I just talked to him about it last week. He was like, when I was like 9, 10, 11, I was just taking lumber and nails out into the woods and just like building tree forts or tunnels and ramps and like
it's nice to know that actually exists and it's not just a thing in movies.
And he said that like sometimes I was taking like new lumber he bought for a job. Like I wasn't just taking scraps.
Oh wait, you were doing these things, not him.
Yeah, I was going out, like just taking his stuff from the garage out into the woods to build stuff, not with him.
So he's got him for his jobs, and you're walking away with raw materials and just fucking around.
Yep.
I love it.
Yeah. We'll have to have him on one time. Or I'll just talk to him about it by the pool in the summer, and we'll play it back.
Anything else you want to say about Little Monsters?
No, I think we covered it, dude. I think anybody who hasn't seen it needs to see it. I think it's a beautiful movie. It has its flaws like anything, but
like I said, it would be hard for me to recommend because like it would require so much preamble of like, well, you got to understand, blah, blah, blah. So I couldn't just openly recommend it to anybody to watch.
I could, easily.
But I think that if you come across it, you should watch it. If you've never seen it, especially if you have any propensity towards enjoying that.
I say go out of your way, find the movie, and watch it.
The movies, from our era, our childhood,
1989,
the early 90s and late 80s, just say there was a special charm to those live action movies that were geared towards family.
Yeah.
Yep. So that brings us to our list, Joe.
Oh yes.
So
sir.
Again, this week we are taking on academia in film. We are each going to select 5 movies that we believe are worth seeing that contain the elements of academia or a main plot point revolving around a student of some sort. Joe, I think
I started it out last.
I was just going to say you started us out last week. Did you want that burden or
no? We got to switch it up. You know what I mean?
Okay.
I picked the first topic.
Before we start,
you picked it. I said whatever.
Tell me a little bit about your strategy when coming up with these.
Strategy.
I guess not really strategy, but your strategy for research. What
I did have some notes here. Now that I pull it up to that, because I didn't pull up any of my notes. We were having such a good discussion about the Little Monsters before I switched my list over. We covered my first note. I love that kids in the 80s movies were always building cool gadgets that disturbed the home process. We definitely covered that in spades. But yeah, in that one, he makes it so like the legs fall off the bed, so he could trap. Yeah,
I guess we didn't really expound upon it, but there was that whole contraption.
They can watch it. I'm just saying that was one note. No, you're good. But I do have the 2 other notes, and that this was released between seasons of Wonder Years, because the Wonder Years started in '98, right? And he filmed this in
which Fred Savage was in
'88, and this filmed in '89, but also it was released 2 years after The Princess Bride. So
he was
the Princess Bride hit, then he gets the Wonder Years on ABC, and boom, he's in this movie, and he's still doing Wonder Years.
So the studio was definitely hoping to cash in on, but I don't think Wonder Years was a children's show.
No, it was a family show.
Was it?
Yeah, because it was.
We didn't watch it as a family.
It was
so I
in
didn't
the
know what the content was
90s.
like.
It was okay. So it was the 90s
I assumed it was like
version.
it was a post 5 p.m. show, so it wasn't really intended for.
It was the 90s
whole
version
family.
of that 70s show, but it was more serious sitcom drama, right? It
Yeah.
was because it was the Wonder Years. If you're not familiar with it, was set in the late 60s, early 70s. It was on for 6 seasons, and it was about growing up in the 60s and 70s. But it came out in the 90s, so that's why I'm referring it to the 70s show. They're not in any way the same type of show,
Understood.
but the generational gap was there. That's it. That's what I wanted to get off my chest.
But that
before moving off of Little Monsters.
that reminded me because now I have something I'd like to
Please,
add.
yeah, that's why we do it.
The scene, the brothers Fred and Ben Savage are walking home from school and having a conversation, and
Yeah, you
amidst
did
this
mention
conversation, Fred Savage is walking tightrope style across this small brick wall, and it's a oneer, so it's just a dolly shot where.
Yeah, like a 3 or 4 foot brick wall that's like around a
And
cemetery
he's
or a
stepping
park.
over pieces where it's like it crowns upwards.
Has the post, yeah,
and then
like a
bushes and all these things where
There's
any
trees hanging
reasonable
over.
parent would be like, get fucking
Like
down
he's doing
from there. You're gonna-
pirouettes and spinning around trees. And
So
yeah.
all I can think about is,
Being on set with child actors.
oh
and
my God, man, I can't imagine the off-camera insanity that was happening and how many takes did they have before the parent or the educator on set was
Oh,
like, we
man.
need to get him off of there. He needs to quit fucking around. He's worth too much money.
But then I mean, that makes it was the 80s. That's just what kids did.
I just
They had
I feel like
mats.
there had to
They
be a level
they
of
had
safety
to have
by then.
mats off
They'd already
screen or
abused the shit
something.
out of Shirley Temple and
Yeah. Of course, I'm joking. But that's how we lived in the 80s. There were no parents around. We were just out in the woods reading comics and lighting shit on fire. Like, we just did whatever we want. Build ramps and burn them down. Like,
Are we closing the book on Little Monsters?
let's close the book on
Closing the
Little
book on Little Monsters. So I'm going to take you back to that question as to whether or not you had any strategy when thinking about your films for this week.
I did. So, 5 films revolving around academia. I mean, top 5 is kind of what we call it, but I wouldn't call them top. Like,
It's things.
I'm not trying to do a favorites list. I'm not
If-
trying to say these
if
are
someone came to
my
me-
favorite academia
Yes,
movies.
if someone came to me
These
and
are
said,
influential.
what
like,
would you recommend is how I kind of look at
yes,
this.
these are things that are coming of age that I feel maybe were underappreciated, overlooked, but are worth a look, or that
here.
were so pivotal I can't not mention them.
100% agree. And I know there was there's definitely at least one film, I believe 2, that I chose not to put on my list in hopes that you had plans on discussing them. So,
Oh, well, don't count on me for stuff like that. Because there's a couple I have on the bottom, because we're supposed to have 5. But I
we
always,
come in off from 5, but I prepare. I
the,
usually
yeah,
prepare.
the way you came last time, I was like, I'm going to do a little more of that. Because, I mean, I still had 10, but I just did that because I had 5, and then I kept coming up with better ones, and I didn't want to take anything off the list.
I just don't think that because we're not
You made
making a
the-
definitive list of any kind.
No,
We're not
it's
ranking
an
these.
opinionated.
So I don't want to have an offer
That's our opinion.
that you offered, right? Like I'd like one more film for someone to watch.
Yes,
Come
exactly.
in with the I just
Exactly.
had some extras.
Better to have extras. That's why I have now, like, 14.
So when I was looking at that was pretty much how I tried to get some with different tone. There was one that immediately came to mind that every time I bring it up, nobody seems to even know it exists. So I'm definitely going to be talking about that. And as far as how I've ordered them for presentation, I don't really have an order to it. I just really tried to grab something different for each recommendation.
Right.
So-
my general sense of order is just number 5 is the one I want to talk about last. You know what I
Okay.
mean? You know,
Okay.
that's really
Fair
it.
enough. So I'm going to throw out my first recommendation. The movie that I am selecting is from 1998, and it stars Matt Damon and Edward Norton, and that is Rounders.
Ooh, that's a good one. Rounders.
So-
how is that revolved around academia?
I'm going to explain it to you.
I've seen this movie. Oh, he was supposed to be going to school. Or
He
something.
is.
That's very
So,
loose.
No, it is not. It is a
Remind me
big.
then.
I'm
Refresh
going
us.
to. So Edward Norton plays a criminal who I forget what he was in jail for. Likely theft or something related to gambling because he is a bad gambler. He's a poker player, as is Matt Damon. And in the film, Matt Damon plays a law student who is really working his way through the ranks as far as networking with his instructors. Instructors are working attorneys, working judges. Martin Landau plays a judge who ends up is his voice of reason at points. But the story is that upon getting out of jail, Edward Norton learns that he is still $25,000 in debt to loan sharks, and he must get out. And so he comes to his retired poker playing friend Matt Damon and asks him to redirect his life of change that he's making to go towards his goal of becoming an attorney.
He wants to help him
and
settle this
asks
debt.
to
Like,
pull
I
him
can't
back
do this without you.
and pulls him back into the underworld for them to go and heavily get
I
involved
can't
with.
believe I basically forgot the whole first act because that is about him turning his life around and Ed
even
Norton
towards
getting out of jail
even towards the later part of the movie, one of their big scores is when they learn that all of Matt Damon's I don't want to say friends, but yes,
they have
his
their own game,
have
and
their
that's
game.
the big hustle. That's how I can't believe I forgot it because that's the big sell for the third act.
You know, with Matt Damon's character, he's got a girlfriend who knew about his sordid past, and he
loved that she had turned the bad boy good.
Right, and it's Gretchen Mol, and I think they do a fabulous job. But yeah, it's a remarkable movie.
It is.
My first experience with John Malkovich, who plays the Mad Russian, who is a phenomenally creepy character.
It's so good. And if you watch any of the behind the scenes or any interviews with Malkovich where he talks about that role, like he's so humble and self-deprecating. Like he's just like, yeah, I just came in and I'm a shit actor. So and he's like
I mean,
he
I
makes
can't speak
fun
on
of
his
himself.
accent. Maybe his accent was
that's
shit. I don't
kind
know.
of what he's talking about, but
But
he
the
stuck
embodiment
to
of
it
the
and he
character-
sold it, and it was so good. And like I just love hearing him talk about it.
So that's my first recommendation. I highly recommend checking out Rounders.
I
Joe, do
agree.
you have anything else to say about Rounders?
No, I think I said my piece about Rounders. I enjoy it. Malkovich is brilliant. Norton's brilliant.
Norton's phenomenal.
Matt Damon he could have been better, but he's always good.
He's growing.
He's always good, and this was a formative role for him,
Yes.
and I think he grew in the role even.
I
Honestly,
agree.
I will go as far as to say that. But my first is a movie from 2002, a drama indie film, The Dangerous Lives of Altar Boys. This is starring Jodie Foster, Emile Hirsch, Kieran Culkin, Jenna Malone, Vincent D'Onofrio, and others. And it's directed by Peter Kerr. Yeah.
I have not seen that, or I don't
so
recall seeing it.
Good. It's a coming of age movie. It's it's a group of friends, and they go to Catholic school, and they're altar boys, and altar boys are
Is this a live-in Catholic school, like a?
No, they go home.
Okay.
Yeah. It's,
How much of the plot happens at the school?
I mean, the whole plot revolves around the school. Like even when they're not in school, it's still about the school. Like they end up they have this comic book, right? The one guy wants to be like the next Stan Lee, the Emile Hirsch character, and the Kieran Culkin character wants to be the editor, right? And I mean, there's editors are great; they're very important, but this character wants to do it because the editor's one that makes you not look like a dumb shit or something like that was one of the lines that he says. Like he doesn't have any artistic ability, and he wants to be attached to it, and it's the two best friends and now the two
Like a bass player.
yeah, and the two new why don't you shut up and be an audible? But yeah, the two other guys that come on become part of the story. They start submitting drawings to the comic book, so he doesn't have any submissions because he can't draw.
Is
and
that a
stuff.
side plot, or is that a big part of the plot?
It's sort of a side plot, but it's
What's the-
it's kind of a part to why like the group falls apart.
Okay.
You know what I mean? So it's a
What's the movie
cornerstone, but
about?
not a side plot. It's about I don't know. That's hard, man. It's
What type of movie is it? Is it a drama?
yeah, it's a drama. It's an indie film.
Period piece?
It is a bit like these are kids growing up in the 70s.
Okay.
You know what I mean?
Okay.
Through that kind of era, like they don't really have video games.
No.
They have their comic books. Yeah,
Yeah.
that's it. Maybe there's an arcade with like Galaga. Or,
What
like,
city did you say it was in?
Oh, I didn't say what city it was in. It was in I think it was in a specific city.
A big city or suburbs?
Let me look here. I don't know. I haven't seen it in a while. You know what I mean? But I just loved it. It has this crossover of animation, and it's just it deals with. I guess it's about like the diversity of families and how just because you know somebody or you're friends with them or even dating them, you don't know what's really happening behind closed doors. So like the Emile Hirsch character and the
I like Emile Hirsch.
Jenna Malone character.
I like Jenna Malone.
Yeah, and this was pre-Donnie Darko, but she's that same kind of character, that mysterious, dark, sexy,
So why would you recommend this film?
Because I think it's relatable. I think there's a character in there for everyone. You know what I mean? I think even if you haven't been one of these people, you've had one of these people in your life. And if maybe you didn't understand them, this will give you an insight to how it does. So, like, the Malone character, she's kind of dark, kind of perverted. Her and Emile Hirsch start dating, and turns out, like, she admits that her brother used to rape her.
Oh, okay.
But that ends up not being true. She raped her brother.
Oh.
And, you have to hear the way the stories are told. You know what I mean? I'm just jumping to the plot
is the
points,
conflict or the thread more about relating each of these different fucked up childhoods to each other, or is it about just the various things that, like, what age were they? Was this like mid-teen type of characters? How old?
I mean,
pre-Donnie Darko, so she was probably probably in the
they were like
16, 17, 18 area, probably.
No.
Younger?
16, 17, 18? She wasn't even that old in Donnie Darko.
How old was Jenna Malone in Donnie Darko?
Like 14, 15?
Get out of here. Because Emile Hirsch, I thought they were right around my age. What year was this done?
2002. And they're like 12.
Wow.
Like they're riding around on bikes. You know what I mean?
Well, that's super dark for that age.
They're stealing beers and drinking them in an abandoned...
Well, I'd be interested in seeing that.
It's really good, dude. Like cinematically, Vincent D'Onofrio is just amazing. He plays.
Okay. Somehow I missed you saying Vincent D'Onofrio. I'm sold on Vincent D'Onofrio.
He plays a priest who's a chain smoker.
Okay.
Jodie Foster's that they call her Nunzilla is the character they made in the comic book about her character. Like it's seriously. I didn't go to Catholic school. I wasn't raised Catholic.
Right.
But it's relatable. You know what I mean? I knew people who were raised Catholic. My parents, my dad went to Catholic school. I had cousins who went to Catholic school. These stories I've heard all my life, and it's there. It's right there, and it's just unapologetic, and it's a lot of it is social commentary about the Kieran Culkin character. The nun is always like, "You're from bad, you're a bad egg. You're a bad egg," and his parents are going through a divorce. And so he can't get solace anywhere but his friends, so he creates all this drama. Oh, if I'm a bad egg, let me show you how bad I can be, rather than, oh, you can be better, let me see you do better. And that kid would have pushed to be better, not worse.
Yeah.
So those kinds of things. Like, it's really, it's good.
Well, I'd be very interested in seeing this, so I would not be mad if this came up on our selection. So the list that we're going through tonight at the end of the episode, we are going to randomly select one for a fresh viewing, and just as we did with Little Monsters, we are going to then take a look at it and discuss it on our next episode. See whether or not it holds up, see whether or not we still have the same feelings about it, and then discuss a little bit more about cinematically what we gather from the movie, what we
Right.
learn from it, what we like from it, or anything that comes to mind.
So we got segment 1 down with little monsters in the bag. We've given you all number 1 from our list. We're going to take a quick break, listen to maybe some sponsors, and we'll be right back.
I didn't even hear what you had said there.
Maybe
but,
some sponsors.
Maybe some sponsors.
Maybe some
sponsors. All right, we will check you back in just a moment.
Pop, lock, and spray it everywhere.
Yeah, my hand got sprayed last time, but
you did drop it.
I did.
But
Well, I didn't drop it. I didn't drop
carbonated.
it.
It doesn't
It fell
make-
out of the fridge. I didn't put it in there.
Okay. Did it hit
Cheers.
the ground or not?
Cheers. Oh, my mouth is dry. Welcome back. We have taken a quick break and we are returning. So we started our list. I dropped Rounders from 1998. What was the name of the film that you added?
The Dangerous Lives of Altar Boys.
The Dangerous Lives of
Yes.
Altar Boys, which I have not seen, and I'm very excited to see. We will see whether or not that ends up being our film to watch this week. All right, so I guess it's now on me.
Yeah, it's on you, and I need to
To
grab
add
a
another one.
napkin.
Ah, man, I asked if you were ready. Well,
am ready.
while Joe grabs his napkin.
All over me, myself, and I.
Hey. Whatever. While Joe cleans himself up here, I'm going to present my next pick. I'm a little bit torn on where I want to go from here based upon what I really want to highlight. So I tried to pick movies that offered something different, either tonally or morally or just in general a style of film. So I think the next recommendation that I'm going to add to our list of films about or surrounding academia or a student is the 2003 film starring Jack Black, School of Rock.
Yes, I'm so glad because I didn't put that on my list,
And I wasn't
in
sure if you
hopes
were
that
going
you
to.
would.
And I'm glad that I got this one because like I said, I believe we're in agreement on another one, and I'm hoping that you will play it because I didn't put it on my list. But School of Rock. So School of Rock is a fabulous movie. What's great about it is that it appeals to adults 100%, but it isn't overly vulgar because most of the cast is children, and as such I think it's a great movie for kids to watch as well. So I wouldn't call it a kids movie, but it is widely available, I think, to many demographic. So the story is
Yeah.
the story is about a Jack Black who is a guitar player who just dreams of being a rock star and gets fired from his band because he dreams too big. He's just a little bit overly antic and wild, and classic Jack Black. It's hands down one of my favorite Jack Black
and
performances.
he is at the start a bit of a shiftless lay about. He's killer at guitar, but he's just
He's
waiting
showy.
for.
He's showy. He wants to be seen. So he needs to make money, and the room that he is staying in is with a friend of his who is a teacher and a substitute teacher, rather. And he needs money,
correct.
and his friend gets a job offer, and he takes it as his roommate. So he walks in to be Ned Schneebly.
Ned Schneebly.
I'm Schneebly, and pretends to be a teacher. And his class turns out to be it's a wealthy parochial type school. Like everybody there comes from wealth, is very
it's definitely
well trained,
like
well
the
maintained.
top 1%, like private
Correct.
elementary school. Yeah.
So these kids, are subjected to or are made available multiple different scholastic options and extracurricular, and he discovers that they are musically inclined and believes that he can create a band to compete in the local battle of the bands and make his rent.
But they're all interested in rock and roll, but they can only play classical music, right? So their music.
He
class is an
introduces
hour.
them, and that's what I think is so wonderful about the movie, is a part of the plot point, because he is an asshole, right? Like, you learn to grow with him as he learns to become an adult. That's his story
and he
arc.
becomes a decent
human
teacher
being.
and human
He does.
being. Yeah.
He learns from the kids because he goes
Finds
in
purpose.
completely selfishly,
Yeah.
and even presenting the musical aspect of it was selfish. While benefiting the children, it was his selfish intent, right?
Yes.
He did in the end provide
Initially,
something for
it
them
was
that was
selfish,
beautiful.
yes.
And that closing scene where they do perform at the Battle of the Bands. First off, the most packed Battle of the Bands I've ever seen at fucking noon on a school day.
Right. And I don't care what city it was. That was insane.
But
I've been to Battle of the Bands.
the journey that he takes the class on, the
Saturday night, and there's
way
5
that the
people.
film approaches music and rock and roll specifically as something that can be part of education, that can, and I genuinely believe that movie spawned a business, because I see more School of Rocks around town than I've ever seen.
Like, and let's not forget the quintessential part of the story where every kid was included. Even the shy girl in the back who had pipes like Aretha.
Oh, yeah.
I want to sing.
But she was
I wanna
shy.
sing. Okay.
She didn't have that confidence.
He didn't ask. No judgment. He said, okay, sing something then. He just encouraged her. He just gave her the
He
opportunity.
gave her the chance. No judgment. He wasn't like, well, hold on. No.
No judgment.
Because I think
None.
originally he had given her like some sort of art project. She was part of like the... she was less
with
handsy.
costume
Oh, no,
and
she was a
makeup or-
backup singer? Was she a backup singer at first? Regardless, she wasn't happy with the placement she had. But they even found like the non-musical people something to do. Like they introduced what is so important about any music. I don't want to say just rock and roll. I appreciate that rock and roll, as a rock fan, and I think that rock music gets put off in the popular culture
But
for
even
too much. But
even an individual solo artist has an entourage of people to make that show possible.
Right.
Not just their backup dancers, backup singers, and
right,
band.
there was
There's
the
makeup, there's set design, there's lighting and sound technicians.
the character played by a very young Miranda Cosgrove, who went on to do iCarly. She was, the lead Carly, and a vocalist on her own right.
She was the band manager.
She was the band manager. She was just the girl in class who wanted to be perfect. She wanted the stars. She wanted the recognition. That was how she was raised. But he was able to even find, and they didn't get along.
She's like, I'm
that
not
was his
interested in
adversary.
music. I want to know business. And he said, I
And
got you
he
covered.
puts her up
Here you
on
go.
Yeah. So I think that film is an incredible film. That first off, if you haven't seen it, it's incredibly funny. It's incredibly amusing as far as its characterizations of people. It's welcoming. It's encouraging, and it highlights the importance of rock and roll. So I put that as my second selection this evening.
My second selection this evening is a PG-13 from 1985. Just One of the Guys.
That's another one I've not seen.
Okay, well, it's quick little synopsis. When Terry Griffith, played by Joyce Heiser, loses her high school's writing competition, she's convinced that's because she's a girl. So Terry decides to change high schools and pose as a boy to prove her point. Her brother, Buddy,
I have seen this.
played by Billy Jacoby, helps her pass. It's so good. Helps her pass as a guy so well that she is soon making friends with the boys at school, including the attractive Rick, played by Clayton Roner. Ooh, use it, not aged well. Who becomes her best friend, but her gender swapping makes things difficult when she falls in love with him. Okay, so yeah, it came out in 1985, April, Columbia Pictures. Budget $5 million, box office 11.5. So it did well, actually. I didn't
performed.
know. Yeah, I mean, I was 3 when it came out, but I remember it well from my
That was
adolescence.
I happened to cross it on Comedy Central type situation.
Right, and this was one of those things where Uncle Paul slid over from Cinemax. You know what I mean? Because it had the young tits in it. So there was
Well, not in the version I saw. I saw it on Comedy Central.
right there were breasticles. So
This is when I definitely
the
would
cast
revisit.
was Joyce Heisner, William Zabka, who's made a reoccurrence with Cobra Kai. He was the bad guy from the Karate Kid, who I believe in How I Met Your Mother they posed, was he really the bad guy?
Was he really the bad guy?
Right, I'm not sure. I like William Zabka. I'm just gonna shout out exactly real quick. But yeah, it was
full of 80s tropes, like
ahead of its time. If that would happen now, because it was a transgender movie before there was transgenders, like in the public eye. I mean, they were around, but in the public eye.
I mean, like, is that character really
okay? Maybe yeah, I'm taking it a step too far, but it was definitely a jab at the patriarchy and about inequality.
Understood. It was definitely still a common.
This woman had big old 38 double D's, had to tape them down.
She taped them down, yeah.
Like how you passing for this?
It was definitely a comment on masculinity.
Yeah, it was toxic masculinity. Yeah, it was a good movie. It was funny. It was witty. It was ahead of its time, I think.
I think that it really nails representation of 80s comedies.
Yes.
Like I said, it
fashion, music,
you knew
the high school
as soon
clique.
as a character came on screen, you knew what clique they were a part of. The tropes were just laden. So it. But I think that's a unique story and something that, especially at the time, was something that needed to be commented on. Women's struggle in the workplace, women's struggle at school, just the right for equality. I mean, I can't even say that today it's any better. I hope that it's at least a little better than it was.
And in the timeline of America, that's when women were really strongly hitting the workforce.
Right.
So
and that's a ripe time to be able to present that in a fun way, but to hopefully have the audience check itself a little bit.
So the fact that it apparently did fairly well in the box office, it's not a smash hit. It made its money back and then some. But I feel like it's gone forgotten. It's gone the way of, you know what I mean? Mm-hmm. Like, when was the last time you even thought of that?
Right.
You know what I mean? Like,
it's a comedy subject. Like I can't say that I know all the plot points. I've probably seen it.
We got to this list, and I just got to remembering all these movies. Like I could have lists of 30 right now. Like,
yeah. The more I thought about it, the more I had to stop thinking about it because I was like, well, I'm not gonna. That's a great one.
Like to bring up like you did last time, like Animal House. I didn't like you said Star Wars, but it wasn't actually on your list. Like Animal House was the quintessential movie that I didn't put on the list, but I felt like everything was based on that kind of not the fact that it was a comedy, but that it was based around academia and that it was hard hitting to society as a satire,
an impact, absolutely,
regardless of its popularity.
Yeah, it still makes an impact. I believe that's one of those films
exactly.
that
it's timelessness
will just
as
stand
as
the
a
test of
social
time.
commentary. Mm-hmm. That's really what I was going for with this list. It's timelessness in social commentary.
So we've each got 2 more picks, and since I know what the last one,
we got 3 more, buddy.
Do we?
That was just 1 and 2.
Oh, that changes things. Okay. All right, I'm a little bit more relieved. Okay, then, so for my third pick, Joe, you're really surprising me tonight. So there was some that
you think
I thought you were going to talk about
bro.
that. Now I'm not sure if you're going to talk about. But that's okay.
Won't.
That's okay.
I might.
It just makes it difficult because there were ones I was like, okay, I'll let Joe talk about it. But you're reaching so. Your reach is a lot longer than I anticipated.
I'm deep into that cerebral.
a lot wider. So
nostalgia.
All right, then. I did a comedy. I did a drama. What do I want to talk about then?
We both started with the drama and went to a comedy. Though.
Yeah, and I mean, I don't really have anything outside of. So
we didn't plan that.
I guess. Okay. So I'm torn between a thriller that is arguably not a great movie, but very representative of its time when it came out.
Just do your list.
Or another comedy.
Just do your list, man. Just do your list.
All right, I'm gonna go with.
I'm gonna go with 14 on here. I'm doing the top 5.
I'm gonna go with PCU.
Okay, all right. I love that movie. That was on my list.
Okay.
So that's something now to.
Oh, so now I've changed your direction.
That's not my next one, but it is gonna have to. I'm gonna have to bring up another movie.
Okay.
Which is I'm actually happy about because the one I had at 6, I wanted to talk about anyway. So
all right. So PCU from 1994.
So good.
It has David Spade. It has a young Jon Favreau.
Jeremy
it has
Piven.
Jeremy Piven in probably one of my favorite roles.
Godfather of funk.
And then George Clinton
and the
makes
Parliament
and the whole
Funkadelic.
Parliament makes an appearance.
Man, so good.
The plot revolves
Jake
around
Busey's in it.
the
There's
plot
so
revolves
many
an
people.
incoming freshman visiting campuses, and he is scheduled to spend a week at. Did I write the name of the school down? I did not. So he comes into the schools to spend the weekend, and he's assigned to stay with Jeremy Piven's character, who is. He's not he's like the asshole, but like he's to be honest, he's hard to describe because I believe he's not one trope.
Jeremy Piven plays Draws.
Right.
D-R-O-Z. It's just
He
obviously
doesn't-
some stupid nickname.
He doesn't lead a fraternity, but he has his collective, right? They're not an official group of any kind, and that's where this incoming freshman spends his time. But along the way, he causes trouble with many different groups. So the school is definitely segmented. You've got your hippies, you've got your the hippies were basically the protesters. They were
Well,
vegans
everybody
at one
was
point.
protesting.
They were war protesting.
So you have
There
vegans,
was
you
the
have
wealthy that were they all wore the same coat. That's what David Spade was. Were they all part of like
preppies, yeah.
the preps? That's the word I'm looking
preps.
for.
Then you had President Garcia, played by Jessica Walter.
Oh God,
Yeah, yep.
I totally didn't even realize that.
So many good people.
But
in
it's
this movie.
hilarious. It is. It's not. It definitely wasn't a big budget film. Like it has a mid '90s indie approach to it. What I love about
budget
it,
$8 million. Director Hart Bochner.
what I love about it is what it uses based on that budget.
20th Century
right?
Studios.
It keeps it small where it needs to be small. It keeps it tight when it needs to be tight, and then where it's big, it's really well done. There's the sequence where
well shot.
they invade the prep party. There's the sequence where they do the party in the barn where everyone gets laid.
Yeah.
The
Pit. Not the
Pit.
bar. The Pit. Yeah, they called their house the Pit. Yeah, the Pit.
So
Tonight, the Pit.
it's funny, and there are relatable characters in it. While all of the characters are definitely over exaggerated, there's definitely no sincerity to the acting or anything. But it is fun, and it's one that I don't think a lot of people really know about, and that's why I recommend it.
I love it so much, and I was contemplating because like it was huge for me, and like I didn't, in high school, I was a couple years old, but I loved it and I watched it all the time. It was played on Comedy Central a lot, but then, I found it on VHS and it was completely different, like at a rummage set.
Oh yeah, from Comedy Central for sure.
Totally different
for
to
sure.
see the unedited version, just like the TNT version, still different from the Comedy Central version.
Yeah, I'll
when you
never
get the
get that.
unedited version, holy shit. But yeah, it was just so it originally was not like on my list because I thought it was well known, and then anybody I kind of talk to this about, I'm not, I don't reveal. Like I ask questions without saying, for my podcast, what do you think?
Right.
I'm just,
Just bringing it
feeling
up in
out-
conversation.
Yeah. And nobody really remembered it, so I was like, I'm gonna throw it on there. So like it was on like number 8, and it slowly went up as I was like deciding. So I'm happy it was on your list, and I'm not upset for it to go down from mine. But my next choice, and I'll be surprised if anybody remembers this, Angus.
Okay, so I've never seen Angus, but
1995.
I'm aware of it. That one, when it trailered, was too inappropriate, according to my parental units, to
I'm not
see.
surprised for that, but that's crazy because it is so appropriate.
Really?
Yeah, there's no even slight.
Was he a
nudity.
bully? What was the story of Angus?
I wouldn't call him a bully.
Redhead kid played him, right?
No, his best friend was a little redhead.
Okay,
kid.
okay.
But he was the big guy. He was Angus Buffoon or Bethune, and they called him Buffoon. And they would say, "Isn't Angus a cow?" Because Angus steak. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Like, and this is
Oh, that's
all.
unfortunate.
Well, this is all in the opening narrative kind of thing. You know what I mean? Because how like the indie
Exposition, yeah.
yeah, and it's a drama romance as they're, but it wasn't to me. I mean, it's definitely not indie film.
What was it rated?
Let's see, where's that? PG-13.
Okay, the 13 is what killed it for me.
For your 67 on Rotten Tomatoes, 6.7 on IMDb. But dude, it had Kathy Bates as the mom.
What?
Yeah, she was the mom. She was a truck driver, and she was a single mother and she, lived with her father, took care of her senile father, who's getting married, by the way, at 75 or
Good
80
for
or
him.
something. Yeah.
Good for him.
But the social commentary is so good, especially this whole time. So let me go through. So it's Charlie Talbert plays Angus Bethune. All right, and his best friend is Chris Owen, who plays Troy Wedberg, and Angus loves Melissa Lefevre.
That's the character name?
It played by Ariana Richards, the granddaughter from Jurassic Park.
Oh, okay.
Right? And he has this rivalry with Rick Sanford, played by James Vanderbeek.
No shit.
Right, and it starts
What year did this come out?
1995.
95.
So this is probably
this is
the
pre-Dawson.
role that got him Dawson.
Yeah, this is pre-Dawson for sure.
But so many good people, like Irvin Kershner's in it, George C. Scott, just so many good actors, right? But he idolizes this Melissa Lefevre, and he has this rivalry and he ends up being the quarterback, his rival, right? Vanderbeek, and Angus is the tackle, right? He's broken this guy's nose because they've played in sports their whole life so many times, because he's always he's always calling him fat and calling him a loser, and he's always been bigger than him, so he breaks his nose. And eventually, now he has what he wants. It's high school. He's dating the girl he's obsessed over since first grade. So as a joke, Angus gets elected freshman prom king, or snowball prom king, right? He's the king of the dance.
Snowball.
Yeah, whatever it was
Sadie
called.
Hawkins.
Yeah, it was one of the
Stupid shit.
so his crush, the popular girl, is the queen, and here Bethune is the king instead of Vanderbeek, right? And it's all a joke. Vanderbeek's the president. He rigged it, right? And Angus is smart. He's good at science. He's probably going to be valedictorian. He understands all this, but he gets to dance with Melissa Lefevre.
Right.
So he's
I'll take it.
And Grandpa's always giving him this advice. I'm going to give you this piece of advice, and you should live by it. And he says it 4 times in the movie. So
Let's make sure you're paying attention.
Screw them. Who cares what they think?
Damn right. Fuck them.
Yeah, fuck them, man. But it's PG-13, so screw them.
Now you can say fuck them once.
Well, yeah, and they do say it once, and it's Grandpa ends up dying, so there's all this heart wrench.
Oh, yeah.
It's a good movie. It's emotional, but I feel like it went unsung because it went up.
I remember
it was a great movie, but it went up against
a lot.
a
And so in my
blockbuster,
mind,
it
heavy
went up
advertisement
against
meant
these big
popularity. But I can't say that anyone in class was like, "Oh, you got to go see Angus."
Oh, they were
So
definitely
it's still
trying to buy that.
It slept on me. You said it was
It had
95.
Green Day and all the whoever's Goo Goo
95.
Dolls. Yeah, 1995, man.
Man, I was 14 years old. I should have been able to see that.
Right, yeah, you definitely should have been able to see it.
God damn it. It's the way it is.
A brief moment in the life of Angus Bethune. That's
I look forward to
catchline.
possibly being able to check that one out. Before I move on, is there anything else that you wanted to say about Angus?
Go see it, man.
I
You
intend
can
to.
rent it on Amazon for
I intend to.
$2.89.
So now we are down to 2 picks apiece.
What do you got for number 2 there, Brad?
So because I've done 2 comedies, and you really are a wild card tonight,
I'm always a wild card.
There are two here I think I'm debating between.
Well, you already knocked out my number 4. So, because I was going to do PCU
You were going
next.
to do
So
PCU.
now
That's disappointing because now I could have then that would have solved my whole problem. But
no,
I wanted to. I
tell
didn't want it to be
you,
missed. I didn't want
these are the
PCU to be
moments
missed.
It would it can't be missed.
I didn't know.
I didn't either. That's the only reason
I jumped the gun.
No, you didn't.
That's
I
okay.
moved it up so it wouldn't be missed. So you had it in the right spot.
Then I am going to go with 2001's A Beautiful Mind. Now, admittedly, it's been some years since I've seen it,
I
so
have no argument that that's an academia movie. Didn't even register to me. Loved that movie though. Jennifer Connelly, so good.
Amazing movie.
Ed
And
Harris.
I was worried about talking about it because I don't recall a lot about it, but this is what I do recall. So first off, it's a story of a mathematician who is an instructor
Crowe,
at
yeah.
Princeton University, played by Russell Crowe. He discovers something he discovers leads him to winning the Nobel Prize. But the movie packages his personal and revolutionary discovery struggles. It packages his personal struggles through that time of the discovery of this equation to him winning the Nobel Prize, and it takes a turn that one was not alluded to in the marketing. Like when I sat down and watched the movie, I really didn't know what I was getting into, and truthfully, I avoided the movie for some time because I'm not a huge fan of biopics. Biopics tend to be like,
fair, yeah.
here's the struggle of this person you already know is fucking amazing.
Over-dramatized.
There's some
The
fake shit in
conflict
between
is
to make
not
them a
where
real
it should
person,
lie,
and
yeah.
at the end of it, hooray, you know why they're heroes. And while that doesn't say anything about them as people, I don't disrespect them, the stories that are being told, but as a piece of entertainment, sometimes I'm like, well, I already know what I'm getting. A Beautiful Mind, I had no fucking clue what I was going to be getting. And again, because it's been about a decade since I've seen it, I don't want to go into particulars and reinterpret it wrong. Maybe you can speak on some, but he has some personal issues with his health mentally. And I don't want that to be a spoiler because I don't remember if it was a spoiler, but it was not addressed in. So it brings
it was a period piece. So it was back in a time where the doctor's understanding of mental health isn't where we are now. So what you would classify that as now, they weren't even aware of back then. So what they called it in the movie is really inconsequential to what it actually was that was wrong with him.
Yeah.
But it is a commentary on what they knew back then. Like, I believe they called him a paranoid schizophrenic, which
Okay.
he had some problems with delusions and things, but it was... He went on medicated, and
Right. It was unattended to. And because of that, he wasn't aware of what was going on. So it twisted his reality. His
and
his
this is
point of
something
view
that's
of life
common
was
with people
the struggle.
of really high intellect, that the older they get, especially if they have like even just ADHD untreated, can turn into these crazy things.
It's beautifully directed by Ron Howard. It's incredibly shot. It's gorgeous to look at, but the performances that Jennifer Connelly and Russell Crowe, and I don't recall who else may be in it because they definitely are the
So many
standouts.
good.
I think Stanley Tucci might be in it. That could be misspeaking. But that one is definitely one that I recommend, and I hope that we are able to watch. And if not, I come across and refresh myself. It's definitely not a movie that you could pop in and watch all the time, which is why it's been so long since I've seen it. It's one of those ones that makes an impact. It sticks with you. It did tell a story, but it offers an introspective look at somebody who we see one side of when we hear their names, or when they're talked about by their peers, but we may not understand the inner turmoil that
When
they
it was
suffer.
in its peak, like if it came on, I wouldn't turn it off. It just doesn't come on anymore.
It's incredibly
or I just don't watch
entertaining.
cable anymore. Whatever. But yeah, I enjoyed it when it came out.
It's
I
a
would
it's
enjoy
a ride.
It. Yeah, it's a good watch.
It's hard at some points. It's sad at others. Boy,
Ed Harris as the spook
Ed Harris.
is just phenomenal, and he's just an illusion. He's not a real character. But yeah, great movie.
So yeah, 2001's A Beautiful Mind is my fourth pick.
So My number 4 was PCU. We've already talked about that. And which one? 'Cause I felt like, see, you got me here. Now I'm in.
I
The
should have just
baffled
held back on
Bradford
PCU.
chair.
Let that one have that. There are
I
two
guess-
here. So here's the thing. You've got 2 picks left, and there are 2 here that I thought for sure you were going to be talking about.
Yeah,
so
well,
I didn't
this
add them
is-
to my list.
We address those things after we get through the list because you
I'm just,
may still be shocked.
I'm just saying.
Because I mean they're okay. If I just strike PCU from the list and I move on, then my number 5 I could say now, but I would just say number 6 first because I want to talk about number 5 last anyway, which is going to have to be Ferris Bueller's Day Off.
It was one I thought you might talk about, but
Yeah.
not one of the 2 that I was talking about.
Okay, still interesting.
Yeah.
All right, still batting 100 at Surprising Brad. Loving that. That's my favorite part of
That's
these
my
lists.
favorite so far, man.
Yeah, because I mean, you like PCU is the only thing you hit that I kind of expected. But
Okay.
I obviously thought you had some other things coming if I put that on
And
my
I thought
list
we
too.
had an unspoken conversation
look over here.
last
Don't be
week.
looking
I
at my
can't
list
see.
'cause
I
my-
got so much shit in front of me, man. I can't see. I'm blind by my own shit.
All right. So
But anyways,
Ferris Bueller's Day Off,
tell us
which
about Ferris Bueller's.
Matthew Broderick. I don't have this pulled up for like cues on shit. Anyways, Matthew Broderick. It was when was it even released? 'Cause, see, I don't have.
Oh
it.
shit! My guess would be like 1985, 84.
Hold on, give me a second. There it is, 1986. John Hughes movie. Matthew Broderick, Alan Ruck, Mira Sarah, miss her, Jennifer Grey, Jeffrey Jones as Ed Rooney, Mr. Rooney, and Charlie Sheen plays the punk in the police station who makes out with Jennifer Grey's sister. Anyway,
kidding.
yeah. So Matthew Broderick is this guy who thinks he's smarter than everybody and outsmarts his parents and calls in sick and goes and wreaks havoc on the city of Chicago.
Yep, takes his day
The
off.
Bears.
The Bears.
The Bulls.
He makes an enemy with the principal,
Ed Rooney.
who is
I wouldn't
making
trust
it
that
his
kid
own
as far as I could
personal.
throw. Well, you shouldn't throw anybody with your bad knee at. The secretary is my favorite.
Makes it his
Oh, I
personal
love that
mission
character.
to end the truancy of Ferris Bueller. The scene where they steal the car is probably one of my
yeah.
favorite scenes.
Cameron's dad's Jaguar.
Mm-hmm.
Oof.
This is where the
such a
trope
beautiful
comes from, because
car.
you see it in multiple cartoons, at least in our childhood,
And
where
car
if you drive
commercials,
the
yeah.
car backwards, the mileage would go down.
No,
And it doesn't work like
that's
that.
an old folktale, urban legend, as it were.
Cars are just not that simple.
Urban legend was another one that almost made.
Did
my
it
list.
really?
It almost did. Yeah.
Interesting. I see how it would fit. We don't have any horror
It
movies
is all.
here.
It's all about a college.
100%.
Yeah,
They're all
so-
students. Well, so
I didn't feel I wanted to bring horror into the talk of academia.
because we could have talked about The Faculty as well.
I mean, and that was when we brought up last week as the quintessential. As I mentioned, Animal House is the quintessential for this. I don't think we put the quintessentials on our list.
No.
We use them as an example for ourselves and our listeners and our guests when we have them.
is there anything more that you want to add about Ferris Bueller before we tangent too far?
I mean, it's Ferris Bueller. If you haven't seen Ferris Bueller, go see Ferris Bueller.
It does stand on its own.
Like,
I was
yeah,
not a fan
you're the
originally
problem,
when I saw it,
you know?
because I saw it. I didn't see it as a child. I saw it probably early 20s.
Right.
And it wasn't like I didn't enjoy it, but
see,
now
early 20s is an acceptable time to see that. You should see it as a teenager,
Yeah.
sure, but early 20s, you're
I
still
think at the
angsty
time,
enough.
I just think at the time I saw it, because I was going through so many phases of what I watched in film, it just wasn't aligned with my interest. Because going back on it now, that's what I was going to say, is like I genuinely love the movie now.
I mean, the biggest thing I want to point out is pretty much any movie I'm going to pick is going to have this era of the subculture, the antithesis of popularity. You know, this guy is going against the status quo. He's out there. He he pretends to be the sausage king of Chicago to get into this fancy restaurant that they're going to dine and dash on. They
What
end
I
up at
really
a table
love about
next
the
to his
movie is how
father.
it breaks the fourth wall.
Yeah, he
And I think
talks to
that
the audience
nails it.
a
The
lot.
whole time you're one of the gang.
I mean, he hijacks a float in the middle of a parade on downtown Chicago and sings and gets a whole city to dance. Like, obviously, that's one of those grandiose 80s movies moments. But as a kid, you just love these things. And it was just, who does that shit? Ferris Bueller does it on his day off.
So we've each got one more choice. I'm going to run down our choices before we go over our last choice. But before I do that, I'm going to let you know that I am concerned. Because there's one movie that I definitely chose not to talk about because I thought you were going to. And if
I just love a
don't
good social
choose
commentary,
that,
man.
if I don't choose that, I'm afraid it's not going to end up on the list. And I know we're going to talk about it on our discards, but
We are going to brush over the discards.
Okay, so
It's a brush
at the
over.
moment, we started out with my recommendation for Rounders. Joe, I didn't get this whole title down. It was The Ordinary Life of Altar Boys. Did I get that right? Not at all.
The Dangerous Lives of Altar Boys.
The Dangerous Lives of Altar Boys.
Yes.
I then suggested School of Rock. Joe recommended Just One of the Guys.
Yeah.
I
80s
recommended
classic.
PCU. Joe followed up with Angus.
Yeah.
I mentioned A Beautiful Mind. And we have just finished discussing Ferris Bueller's Day Off.
Yeah.
So now we're getting to the point where I knew what I was going to talk about in my last spot, and I'm gonna keep it there because I know that you're not going to talk about this one.
Just pay attention.
In my heart of
Because
hearts,
if life moves too fast, you just might miss it.
you just might miss it.
Quote from Ferris Bueller. Sorry.
That's appropriate. I like that. I wouldn't have been able to say. I'm terrible at quotes. I hope we establish that on this show. I will misquote everything.
I may misquote a word or two, but you never know it because I'm so confident when I do.
You are incredibly confident. And you deliver it with such a natural finesse that I don't even know if it's not a line that I'm 100% familiar with that came from a movie, I would just believe Joe said it. That's what Joe said. And he's like, oh, don't you know? I'm like, no, I don't. Oh, that's from, damn, well, I didn't know.
Yeah.
You've seen that movie? I know I've fucking seen the movie,
really
but I don't have
need
the
to be
script
less
memorized.
disappointed in people because my jokes are so situational. And, like, if you don't know, like, Brad points out all the time, who's going to know that if you didn't have any? You just said something without context. I'm like,
But you
I'm
get
really
enjoyment out of
disappointed.
that.
I do.
That's where the
I
enjoyment
almost
comes from for
enjoy nobody getting it. But I get more joy out of when that one person actually catches it. And it's 1 in a million, but that's what I do it for. It's for them and for me going, oh, they got it.
But that's why I hang out with you.
Well, like I'll do this one for my wife and my daughter. Do you know how a moose says I love you?
No.
Oh! That's from a movie. We'll talk about that later.
All right, then. So my last pick for the evening is from 1981. It stars a very young Sean Penn, Timothy Hutton, a baby-faced Tom Cruise, and a masterful performance by previously mentioned George C. Scott. And that is the movie Taps. A movie about a military academy where the students and the school learn that the school is going to be torn down and turned into a condominium development. The school is 141 years old and has a rich history in the military. Well done, Joe.
Well, I'm going to cut it out.
Well, maybe not. The story is a very slow burn story, but it's because most of the cast is so young and because they are being faced with something that they feel so strongly about. The performances are incredible. You really feel for what the students are going through, but ultimately what they decide to do, and because I really want you to see it, I want to speak very vaguely, but they lock down the school is the strong plot of the movie. They take over the school to keep out the developers. So when the bulldozers, in quotes here, shows up to move them out, they take a stand.
I'm all for any story against corporate.
I'll tell you what, this is hands down one of my favorite Tom Cruise performances. It was his first film performance. He was 17 years old. And in this performance, regardless of how you feel about him as a person, his performance in this movie really defines his next 10 years.
I mean, he's a great performer. He's amazing. I'll never hate him for that. Yeah.
So is Sean Penn. So is Timothy Hutton in the lead role. The cadet who takes over and leads this
I've
revolution.
Seen Taps. Yeah,
have you?
I have, of course. Yeah,
I was not aware.
Yeah. No, but yeah, that for me, it didn't come to mind as a
for whatever reason.
Movie. It was a military movie in my mind. So it did come through my head, but not as like I didn't think of it as school.
Right. That is. I mean, that's what that is their school. That's their life. They are students.
Right.
And
well, I mean, this movie that I'm about to mention has nothing to do with TAPS, but it didn't make my list because it was a school that's not really a school, which would have been the 1991 ski school.
Fucking hell. I can't believe you, man. Okay.
It didn't make the list, though.
Oh, okay.
It did not make the list.
Okay.
But because it's not really school, it was more school, like, you know, the 80s, 90s ski epidemic movies. You know what I mean? Like, and TAPS was like, sure, it had school in it, but so did Top Gun. So did.
Well, but what makes TAPS different is because them being students is representative to the story.
I completely agree with you. That's why I'm not contesting it being on the list. But why it didn't make my list is because
understood.
I didn't consider it past
the reason this movie always
like
comes
with
to
Rounders,
my mind.
That's a gambling or a poker movie.
Yeah,
it fits. It fits. But
the reason it comes to mind because I put it in.
It.
I put it in the same camp as another movie that I was hoping was going to be talked about tonight, but it makes such an impact on ethics and morality because of the use of students as the protagonist and adults as the antagonist. Because regardless of how I feel, because I believe my views on military are different now than they were the last time I saw that movie, but I do believe that it focuses on both sides of where you may feel. In a way that addresses other things that are, I mean, really, it's about the man coming in and, you know, and money and corporations. Like, it's a fucking condo. So regardless of what is being developed, like, these kids this is their life. This is what they wwere raised or brought to or desired to be a part of. And it is their lifestyle. And that's what education is. It has, you know, because they weren't just training soldiers. There's highlights.
I'm agreeing with you. It makes the list.
But that's why that movie always comes to my mind. And if you haven't seen it, I do highly recommend it.
All right. So my number one.
I'm nervous over here.
Or number 5 or whatever, because we're not going over favorites.
Yeah, last pick.
Dead Poets Society.
Thank fucking Christ.
Such a beautiful movie. So just to directed by Peter Weir, screenplay by Tom Schulman, a New England teacher, John Keating, played by the late
Robin Williams.
Great one and only Robin Williams, is introduced to an all-boys preparatory school that is known for its ancient traditions and high standards. He uses unorthodox methods, as we tend to do.
Yes,
Welcome to the Unorthodox Film Podcast, everyone. Plug ourselves real quick. But he uses these unorthodox methods to reach out to his students who face enormous pressures from their parents and the school. And with Keating's help, students Neil Perry, played by Robert Sean Leonard, Todd Anderson, played by Ethan Hawke, and others learn to break out of their shells, pursue their dreams, and carpe diem, seize the day, seize the carp, to reference another movie that I'm not going to mention. That's for another time. If you know, you know. Anyways, starring Robin Williams, Ethan Hawke, Robert Sean Leonard, Gail Hansen, Josh Charles, Dylan Cussman. It's such a good movie. It's such a great commentary on. It's a private school, I believe a Catholic private school, all boys, preparatory. So
I don't remember if there was a religious lean to the school or not, but it was of a time
no, they
where
went. They went to
people were
chapel
grouped
for
by
sure.
yeah.
Like they went to chapel.
People were grouped by religion back that that far.
It was just that time. Yeah, so it's a period piece in a way, but it's a coming of age, timeless tale. But
the
it's
cast in that movie
ultimately
is so fucking good.
What the Dead Poet Society is this group of boys who go out in a cave and read poetry, but their interpretation of it, they act it out.
The romanticization of it, like
yes,
the fact that it's an all boys school,
and they only read poetry from people who have passed.
Right,
they only read dead poets,
and they get over any personal insecurities through this group. It's very, it's probably the best coming of age movie ever made.
Yeah, so I saw this very young. And
Me too.
In high school, I read a lot of poetry. I was, I wasn't like a super student, but I did get some advanced classes. I was that quintessential troubled teen. You know what I mean?
You forced yourself to read poetry, or did you enjoy poetry?
No, I was in. Yeah, I was intelligent, and I had advanced placement classes and classes I didn't deliver in. That's not the point. I went to the library every day and picked out a new book of poetry for myself and would finish it like in a day. I've read the complete works of William Shakespeare before junior year, voluntarily.
Joe I just did poetry. I don't know how that helps you watch Dead Poet Society, but if you want to listen to Joe
at the age I was
rewatching
this movie to relate to these poems through other people's views, and I just kind of wanted that kind of group of friends. That's why I tried to chase
one
down
of the things that I love about
every
the movie,
facet rather than theater or painting or sculpting, building. Any facet I wanted a part of.
I didn't come from a wealthy family. However, what I loved about this movie was the fact that each of these students came from wealthy families of import, that the assumption could be made.
Same problems.
The assumption could be made that they had everything and had nothing to worry about. But because they made that an equal playing field amongst these students, you knew immediately to throw that away, and you saw them each as individuals and the problems that young kids have, and even problems that may be unique to people of their lifestyle with expectations and forcible growth.
Yes, and the character that Robin Williams played. Robin Williams is a teacher who just got out of college as a teacher. But he went to this preparatory school. He is those kids.
Right.
He was the boys he's speaking to, and he came back to show them that the world is not this place.
Right.
And therein lies even more beauty of the story.
Hands down, one of his best performances of his career.
So good. Oh, Captain, my Captain.
Oh, Captain, my Captain. Do something different. Be something different.
Stand on your desk for a moment, if only to see the world from a different perspective, so you can understand that not only your view is what is happening.
So I have an anecdote about that. When I went, first off, anyone who may have got the opportunity to be in school with me knows that I was super nerdy. And going to college, I wanted to kind of redefine myself. And for whatever reason, I took to heart a lot of Dead Poet Society, which I don't regret. I still take that very much to heart.
Me too, yeah.
But in one of my classes, it was an English class of some kind. We had to do some sort of report or presentation. And I stood on top of my desk for no relation to the project at hand to just do it fucking differently. It did not go well, but I did it, and that's why.
Oh, Captain, my Captain. Seize the carp.
Carpa the diem.
That's right.
So I am so glad you picked that film. That was one of the films that I was alluding to, and the most important.
It was so influential to me, and even just in my own life.
It was the inspiration for this list. I'll be honest. When I came up with the idea, that's when I wanted to talk about. You had kind of alluded, and I was like, someone. I don't care who talks about it.
I say, the Animal House was the quintessential, but only because I had to use Dead Poets Society. And I love Animal House. I love all the.
It's a hard movie. Like, it's not a date movie. It's not a fun movie. It's not an uplifting movie. But it is an important movie that is incredibly well crafted.
Yeah. And
10/10 on performances from the entire. What a star cast!
Like, honestly, there are like
before they were stars,
groups of academic movies, and like Dead Poets Society is one I put in with like with honors. Joe Pesci, Brendan Fraser, great. Like Joe Pesci plays homeless guy. Brendan Fraser's this guy with honors, and he has this thesis for his doctorate, and he loses it. Homeless guy finds it and blackmails this kid for a place to stay, a page a day.
So is that on your discard list?
Yes.
So that's a great transition.
But so is School Ties.
So it was on mine. Before we get into that,
those rank with Dead Poets Society, but they're not Dead Poets Society.
They were hard. I had School Ties on my list as well. So let's go over the 10 here. I have already written random numbers next to these if you wanted to select 1 through 10. If not, I can pass the card over to you to where you can renumber them, and I can choose 1 through 10. How did you want to go about that today?
Well, I picked last time, so you should pick this time. So I will. All right,
so I'm handing that back over. You renumber those. I'm going to go over the list one more time from memory. So, Joe, if I fail here while you're numbering, you just let me know. We started the list off with Rounders. Joe then added, give me a second to get this, The Unfortunate Lives of Altar Boys.
The Dangerous Lives of Altar Boys.
I don't know why this is so hard for me.
Yeah.
It's so many words.
Is it
the
Blue to Gray, From Gray to Blue, from Blue to Gray?
Nice callback. The Dangerous Lives of Altar Boys. I then offered up School of Rock. Joe then suggested to us, was that Just One of the Guys?
Just One of the Guys.
PCU was one that I recommended. Joe recommended Angus, followed up by A Beautiful Mind, Ferris Bueller's Day Off, Taps, and the Dead Poets Society. So now Joe looks like he's finished randomly numbering these out. I'm going to pick a number 1 through 10. And from that, we are going to watch one of the movies from this list, get a fresh look, a fresh view on it, and we will then discuss it on our next episode. Joe, are you ready for me to pick 1 through 10?
3, 2, 1, shoot.
3.
3. Just One of the Guys.
Oh, that's amazing. That's amazing. I look forward to that. I don't know where we'll find that. Hopefully that's on Amazon Prime. Watched...
Brad's number 3 would have been Dead Poets Society.
That is true.
But I'm not upset.
I've
seen Dead Poets Society more recently than I've seen Just One of the Guys.
Just One of the Guys is one of the ones I was hoping that we would select. So I'm very happy about that. Joe, any final words for us today?
I mean, I really enjoy doing this. I still have movies to mention.
That is my bad. That is my bad.
We are wrapping up. I don't want to go through these like we've done. We're a good 2 hours.
So you've mentioned a couple.
I have. So like I mentioned things that would go in the realm of Dead Poets Society. So let's move on to like things that would go in the realm of, say, Just One of the Guys or Angus. I would say like Encino Man, Dazed and Confused.
Dazed and Confused was on my list. I don't see Encino Man as, I get it because he's of student age.
Right, but it's all about a different perspective, right?
Was it about him fitting in with the kids at school?
Yes.
Okay, so that would
it was
qualify.
About with helping the people that found him fit in and find their relation because they were making it harder than it was. Yeah. Yes. You got to look deeper than the surface level.
We'll call that one a stretch, but
it's not a stretch. Watch it again.
I hear you.
You know, watch it as
an
an
Man
adult.
On our list last week?
No, I mentioned it because of Pauly Shore and because I love Brendan Fraser.
Yeah,
but I also had the movie Election on there.
Which I have not seen. I definitely need to see that. More and more people. So I worked at the theater when it came out. I saw it as a Reese Witherspoon chick movie. I had no idea.
No, dude.
I had no idea. I'm aware now.
This is up there with The Dangerous Lives of Altar Boys. Yeah. Like, because it's showing you the dirty underbelly of everything going on. You know, which, I mean, with honors would kind of fit that too. I also had, and this would go more with PCU or Angus, even with Ferris Bueller, I guess. Ski School, Dazed and Confused, Revenge of the Nerds,
Oh, I didn't
Fast
even think
Times
of that one.
at Ridgemont High. Mm-hmm. Fast Times at Ridgemont High.
Oh, of course.
Like that
I toyed with
one of
that
the
one.
first ones I thought of.
I definitely
but,
toyed with that one.
I mean, it's so quintessential. It's basically Dazed and Confused is the new.
I like
You
watching.
know,
They used to come in a
it's the 10
DVD
years
double pack,
later
but Dazed and
from
Confused
Fast
and Fast Times
yeah.
are definitely brethren.
Yeah, there's just more stoners
There's
in Dazed and Confused.
no
than there
reason
are.
to not watch those as a marathon.
No, and Revenge of the Nerds, just amazing.
How many more? How many more you got?
Ski School. I already
Ski
mentioned
School, you
that.
did mention
yeah,
that one.
I threw that one in already. I mean, that's it. I mean,
So the
there
ones
are
that-
more that I've deleted. Even
Oh, of
the
course,
Breakfast
of
Club,
course.
Pretty Pink, all of them Brat Pack movies.
Yep.
You know,
Ones that I had on my list, I definitely had Dazed and Confused. When I had mentioned that there were two that I thought would be talked about, I'm really glad that this one didn't make the list, just because we kind of hit the tone already, and it's probably one of those quintessentials, and that's Good Will Hunting.
yeah.
Van Wilder, I opted out of.
I
as a
almost
PCU.
put that on there too.
You know, when it's like
but-
Animal
But
House,
Van Wilder is
PCU.
basically
But I-
trying to be PCU, but fitting the next generation.
Next Generation, and I think the
PCU was trying to be Animal
But
House.
I think at this
so-
point now it's been so long, and because of what Ryan Reynolds has done with his career, that's probably been long forgotten by those who really
Yeah.
weren't exposed to it. So
I mean, and Cal
wanted to
Penn
mention
got
that.
his start on that too.
Yes, he
kind of.
did.
Spread-
Yes, he did. 100%.
He
He
spread
was
some
his,
wings on that.
He was his assistant. The one that I was really
Taj-
torn between that I had
Taj
mentioned.
Mahal Badalandabat.
That's right. The one that I was torn between because it really was an influential film when it came out. Like it did make waves
Yeah.
on its release, but maybe hasn't grown to age so well. And that was Cruel Intentions.
Okay, yeah.
I think that one is one that can be ignored at this point for one reason, and I think it's a shame. I think it does still offer. It's definitely poppy. It's definitely drawn to the MTV crowd, but I think it was trying to make a statement.
It was, and it I would put that right there with The Dangerous Lives of Altar Boys because it talks about like sexual pressure on young
Right.
women.
I
and
think there
how
was a
they cave,
genuine
or maybe
moral there.
Yeah,
You know, regardless of the content, and
Yes.
like I said, it's probably pushed aside, you know, because of its hype popularity.
well, she was just
and-
a slut and a druggie.
School Ties, as you mentioned, and then I think the last one, which definitely got knocked out because of the superior film PCU, and that's Accepted.
Accepted was so good. Yeah, I love that movie. Again, that would like when we do like I didn't put it with academia.
We'll hit
Like,
it. We'll hit it.
I wasn't doing like comedy college movies. Like
Right.
that's a whole nother genre.
Right.
Like
It came up-
like we can't just do an episode
didn't even-
about action movies. We're gonna
Right.
do like 12 episodes about action movies because there's so many different types of action movies, genres, different spoofs, and fucking. It's too much to just say what's your favorite action movie.
So, speaking of future conversations, do you have a suggestion for our topic next week?
I do. And while I'm pulling that up on my phone, because I have a couple ideas. I
So,
wanna
next week
suggest
we
to
are
you.
going to be taking a
just
look
wanna-
at
Okay.
Just One of the Guys. Joe and I are going to give it a fresh look, come back in and open our episode with discussing our viewing of that. And then we are going into a discussion of what, Joe?
Well, I have a couple options here for you.
Okay.
But real quick, I want to shout out MIFA, the Michigan Film Incentive Association. I'm wearing a T-shirt right now.
You sure are. Make film business your business.
MIFIA.com. Go check. Is it .com or .org? Here, check out the
Oh,
back
you got
of
to
my
turn
shirt.
around.
Yeah,
You
check
got to
out
do the
back.
whole dance. .org.
.org.
www.
See, I knew I was wrong. .org.
.mifia.org.
Yeah, go check them out. Become a member. So, I have 4 ideas here. I'm gonna go with 2. I'm gonna give you 2 options. You get to pick. Okay, so here's your 2 choices. I got a couple here. First one, top 5 films about music that aren't musicals or a biopic.
Okay.
Top example, School of Rock. because we mentioned that today. So obviously, the one I use as a quintessential.
So no
can't
no
be
true
on the
life
list.
stories.
Right, can't be like the biopic.
Okay.
You know, I don't want to hear Bohemian Rhapsody. I don't want to hear The Dirt. Great movies.
Yeah,
They don't fit. They're biopics.
Not here. Okay.
Right.
When you say about music,
But not a musical.
okay. I like that one.
Okay. The other option was
the classics
5
that
cult
were
classics
released
that
against
flopped due
blockbusters?
to being outshined by smash hits, like VHF, which you were like, I don't think that one would fit anyway. Okay, Evil Dead.
Well, don't list too many because we're going to come back to the topic. It's not a dead
Evil
topic.
Dead's not going to make
It's
that
not a
list
dead
anyway.
topic. It was also
It's
I
a
get
dead
it.
topic. Yeah,
I get
dead
it.
Topic.
I get it. Okay.
Yeah, so that's what we're talking about.
So next week, that's what we're going to talk about. Our recommendations of movies that are about music, but not biopics
Or musicals.
Musicals.
Yeah.
Thank you, everybody, for joining us. If you have any suggestions of your own for our topic this week of movies that are about or surrounding academia or students, there were a couple even that I thought of that I didn't add to my discard list because I decided just not to talk about them. So there are definitely some films out there that we can still talk about. Let us know.
That's
the
why
meantime,
we're having this discussion.
this
There
is
are
an
too
open,
many movies.
This is
we
an
want
open
to talk
conversation.
about all of them.
We want everybody to join in with us. So we will see you next time on the Unorthodox Film Podcast. Thank you, everybody.
Keep popping them tabs.